Vesta Prime looked like a planet that had died angry. Its surface was a mosaic of fractured basalt and frozen impact scars, lit dimly by the red dwarf it circled. No atmosphere. No signal traffic. No reason to be here, except that the old map said something was buried beneath the rock, and old maps were usually right in the most inconvenient ways. Mara Kade guided her salvage cutter into a shallow descent, thrusters whispering instead of roaring. Loud landings attracted attention, and attention was a luxury she'd stopped affording years ago. "All right," she murmured to herself, eyes scanning the terrain. 5 minutes in and out. Find something expensive. Leave before the universe notices. The cutter settled into a natural depression between jagged ridges. As the engines powered down, silence flooded in, thick, absolute, unnatural. Mara checked her suit seals, slung her tool pack over one shoulder, and stepped onto the cracked surface. The ground vibrated faintly under her boots. She froze. Not seismic. Too rhythmic. Too deliberate. Mara crouched, brushed away centuries of dust, and found the edge of a geometric seam where no natural fracture should exist. Perfect angles. Human-made. Old. Well, she sighed, straightening. That's never a good sign. Her scanner flared to life, throwing holographic lines across the ground. What came back made her jaw tighten. A structure. Massive. Buried deep. Power readings flatlined, dead for centuries. A vault. Mara hesitated only a moment before activating her plasma cutter. She wasn't a believer in destiny. But she was a believer in sunk costs, and she'd come too far to turn back because history had teeth. The rock peeled away with controlled precision, revealing a smooth obsidian wall beneath, untouched by erosion, unmarred by time. Faded symbols lined its surface. Warnings, probably. She didn't bother translating them. "If you're haunted," she said quietly, "take a number." The vault opened without resistance. No alarms. No turrets. No sudden death. That worried her more than any defense system. Inside, the air was sterile, preserved. The corridor stretched forward, tall and wide, built for something larger than a normal human. The lights activated as she stepped in, dim and patient, as if the place had been waiting politely. Her boots echoed once. Then stopped. The corridor ended in a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. At the center floated a shape suspended in a faint, blue stasis field. Armor. Not power armor like the kind modern militias used, bulky, modular, disposable. This was different. Sleeker. Organic in places. Scarred, patched, reinforced, and rebuilt so many times it looked less manufactured and more forged by survival. Mara felt her breath slow. "So you're real," she whispered. The stasis field rippled. A soft tone resonated through the chamber, not sound exactly, more like pressure in the skull. "Scanning." Mara stiffened. Her hand drifted toward her sidearm, though she knew how useless that would be. "Easy," she said. "I'm just browsing." Light washed over her, dissecting without touch. Data streamed too fast to follow. "Candidate human. Genetic markers, with invariants. Neural architecture, damaged." She grimaced. "Join the club." The pause that followed felt intentional. "Psychological profile, unsuitable." Mara snorted. "Told you." The stasis field dimmed slightly. "Previous candidates, rejected." Her interest sharpened. "How many?" 437. Mara let out a low whistle. "That bad, huh?" Ambition overload. Dependency expectation. Moral deferral. Indecision under terminal pressure. The words were delivered without judgment. Just fact. Mara circled the platform slowly, studying the armor's surface. Deep gouges scored the chest plating. Repairs overlapped older repairs, each layer telling a story of battles fought and barely survived. "So what?" she said. "You're waiting for perfection?" "No." That made her stop. "Then what?" The armor didn't answer immediately. If it was thinking, it didn't announce it. Finally. I am waiting for completion. Mara laughed once, short and humorless. You picked the wrong species. She stepped back, already feeling the weight of disappointment settle in. Another myth. Another dead end. Whatever this thing was, it belonged to a better version of humanity, one that had burned itself out centuries ago. She turned toward the exit and muttered, more to herself than anything. Figures. Humanity waits, debates, files reports, and dies anyway. The chamber vibrated. Mara froze mid-step as the stasis field flared bright. Repeat statement. She blinked. What? Vocalization registered as decisive termination intent. Mara frowned, irritation bleeding through exhaustion. I said we're done waiting. We either finish things or get wiped out. Not exactly poetry. Silence. Then, softly. Statement accepted. The stasis field collapsed. Mara spun around just as the armor descended, landing on the platform with a weight that thrummed through the vault. Panels shifted, realigning with fluid precision. Partial synchronization initiated. Hold on, she started. The armor unfolded around her in a blur of motion, stopping inches from contact. Compatibility remains suboptimal. Glad we agree. However, the voice continued. Resolve threshold exceeded minimum parameters. Mara swallowed. You're choosing me? No. Her jaw tightened. I am proceeding despite incompatibility. That earned a slow, incredulous smile. Story of my life. Data flooded her visor as the armor interfaced without fully bonding, battle projections, star charts, casualty curves. One figure burned brighter than the rest. Human extinction probability, 97.3% within 20 standard years. Mara stared at it, expression flat. Lower than I expected. You are not afraid, the armor observed. I don't have the energy, she replied. So what now? The armor systems powered down slightly, settling into a dormant-ready state. Now, it said, you decide whether humanity continues. Mara looked at the ancient machine, then at the long, dark corridor leading back to her ship, and beyond that, to a collapsing frontier that didn't know it was already out of time. She exhaled once. Then let's finish this. The armor did not sleep. Mara learned that within the first hour of leaving Vesta Prime. It remained quiet, folded beneath the outer layers of her ship, its systems humming at a frequency she felt more than heard. Not intrusive. Not comforting either. Present. Like a second pulse that wasn't hers. She kept her hands steady on the controls as the cutter jumped into slip space. Don't start talking in my head, she said flatly. Acknowledged. The armor replied through the cockpit speakers. External communication only unless critical. Good, Mara muttered. We're already crowded in here. The jump spat her out near the Helios fringe, a loose cluster of human settlements stitched together by trade routes and desperation. Emergency traffic flooded her sensors before she could even orient the ship. Distress calls. Broken signals. Automated beacons screaming into the void. Mara's jaw set. You seeing this? Confirmed, the armor replied. Keth Dominion assault in progress. Multivector. Pattern indicates extermination, not occupation. Of course it does. She routed the feeds to the main display. Helios Station, civilian hub, refueling depot, 20,000 souls, was burning. Dominion cruisers carved through defense platforms with clinical precision. Human ships scattered, firing wildly, dying faster. Mara didn't wait for permission. She cut engines and dropped straight toward the station. The armor unfolded around her before she finished the thought. Plates flowed over her limbs, locking without pressure, sealing like it had always known her shape. The HUD flared alive, clean, efficient, ruthless. Warning, the armor said. Engagement probability exceeds survivability threshold. Story of the day, Mara replied, launching from the cutter into vacuum. She hit the battlefield like a thrown blade. The first Dominion interceptor never saw her. The armor adjusted micro-thrusters instinctively, twisting her trajectory just enough to slip past its targeting cone. Mara fired once. The shot wasn't flashy, no beam, no explosion. The interceptor went dark and drifted, systems dead. She didn't feel triumph. Only momentum. Human pilots shouted over open channels, confusion bleeding into disbelief. What the hell is that? Is that one of ours? Who's controlling? Mara cut the channel. Focus mattered more than explanations. The armor fed her vectors, threat priorities, probability branches. It didn't command her. It offered. She chose. A Dominion boarding pod breached the station's outer ring. Mara altered course, slammed through the hull, and landed hard inside a corridor filled with smoke and screaming alarms. Civilians were running. Some froze when they saw her. Move! She snapped, pointing. Now! They obeyed without question. The boarding unit rounded the corner, 6 Keth shock troopers, armored like walking fortresses, weapons already charging. The armor marked firing arcs in Mara's vision, but she didn't follow the optimal solution. She stepped forward instead. The first trooper fired. The shot clipped her shoulder, pain blooming sharp and real. The armor dampened it, not erased it. Mara returned fire twice. One trooper dropped. Another staggered. The rest adapted immediately. I can eliminate all hostiles in 3.2 seconds, the armor stated. No, Mara said, already moving. You'll kill the people behind them. She charged. The fight was brutal and close. No elegance. No spectacle. When it ended, the corridor was quiet except for Mara's breathing and the distant thrum of the station's failing systems. She looked at the bodies, then at the civilians huddled behind her. Go, she said. They ran. The armor did not comment. By the time Dominion forces withdrew, having lost far more than projected, the feeds were full of speculation, fear, and something dangerously close to hope. Mara returned to her ship and sealed the hatch. Only then did she slump into the pilot's chair, sweat cooling against her skin. Her hands were shaking. You sustained neural overload, the armor said. I mitigated damage where possible. Lucky me. You refused 3 lethal optimizations. Mara closed her eyes. Because they weren't necessary. They would have ensured higher efficiency. She laughed softly. That's the difference between us. A pause. Clarify. You win by numbers, she said. We win by choosing who matters. The armor processed that longer than it had anything else so far. Hours later, as emergency councils convened and rumors spread faster than facts, the Dominion watched. Overlord HFY stood before a projection of the battle, his segmented fingers clasped behind his back. His many eyes tracked Mara's movements frame by frame. Confirmed, one of his aides said. Pre-collapse human relic. Active. HFY's mandibles flexed, not in anger, but interest. So, he said calmly, the ghosts still walk. Orders, Overlord? Do nothing, HFY replied. Pressure her instead. The aide hesitated. She represents a strategic anomaly. No, HFY corrected. She represents denial. He turned away from the display. Increase civilian exposure. Force her to choose between victories. Back aboard her ship, Mara watched the political response unfold. Leaders arguing, analysts panicking, admirals demanding custody of the armor. She ignored them all. You didn't answer my question earlier, she said quietly. Query? Why me? The armor powered down secondary systems, focusing. You do not seek permission, it said. You do not externalize responsibility. You accept outcome ownership. Mara stared at the stars beyond the viewport. That doesn't make me special. Correct, the armor replied. It makes you dangerous. New alerts flashed across the console. Simultaneous attacks across 3 frontier systems. Mara straightened. Then let's be a problem. The armor's response was immediate. Calculating survival probability, it said. Updated estimate, 22%. Mara smiled grimly as she brought the engines online. Plenty. The star was dying the wrong way. Instead of collapsing inward, it was tearing itself apart, radiation peeling from its surface in violent arcs. The Dominion fleet had chosen the system deliberately. Chaos favored structure, and structure was their strength. Human ships arrived in staggered waves, outnumbered, underpowered, and already bleeding heat from pushed reactors. Mara floated at the center of it all, wrapped in armor that had once carried empires and now carried one tired woman who refused to retreat. Battlefield integrity, unstable. The armor warned. Radiation exposure exceeds long-term survivability. Long-term's overrated, Mara replied, eyes locked on the tactical display. The Dominion flagship emerged from the glare like a blade drawn slowly from a wound. Massive. Immaculate. Its presence bent traffic lanes, forced human pilots to adjust instinctively, like prey correcting course around a predator. A channel opened without request. Overlord HFY appeared, tall, segmented, composed. His voice carried no distortion. You persist, he said. Fascinating. Mara didn't slow her approach. You picked the wrong species to bore. HFY tilted his head. Your relic skews probability. But you remain singular. Once removed, humanity returns to trend. Funny, Mara said. I was thinking the same about you. The Dominion fleet surged forward. Mara didn't meet them head-on. She dove straight toward the star. Human commanders shouted over comms, panic rising. She cut them off. All units, she said calmly, decentralize. No formations. No commands. You know how to fight. Do it your way. Then she went silent. The armor screamed warnings as stellar radiation battered its shields. Systems rerouted, burned, adapted. Mara felt heat claw through dampeners, nerves lighting up with sharp, undeniable pain. Core load exceeding safe parameters, the armor reported. Neural feedback imminent. Hold together, Mara said through clenched teeth. Just a little longer. She skimmed the star's outer turbulence, dragging Dominion targeting systems after her like moths chasing flame. Their fire grew erratic, predictive models failing as gravity twisted trajectories. Above, human ships scattered, not fleeing, but fracturing into chaos. Independent strikes. Improvised traps. Pilots exploiting gaps no algorithm could anticipate. HFY watched it unfold, mandibles tightening. This is inefficiency, he said. This, Mara replied, cutting hard across his flagship's sensor shadow, is improvisation. She burst from the glare beneath the flagship's hull and fired at point-blank range. The shot wasn't lethal, but it didn't need to be. The blast disrupted the ship's gravity stabilizers just long enough. Human cruisers seized the opening. The Dominion formation buckled. HFY's voice sharpened. You are sacrificing yourself. Mara felt something tear inside her, neural feedback spiking as the armor pushed past its limits. Blood filled her mouth. She swallowed it down. Not sacrificing, she said. Deciding. Critical failure approaching, the armor warned. Continuation will result in permanent system loss. Mara didn't hesitate. Do it. The armor complied. Every remaining reserve dumped into one final maneuver. Space twisted. The dying star flared violently as energy was redirected, just enough to shove the Dominion flagship into an unstable orbit. HFY's calm finally fractured. This outcome is illogical, he said. Mara opened the channel one last time. Her voice was steady, human, real. You keep thinking survival is about control, she told him. It's not. It's about refusing to stop. The flagship vanished into the stellar storm. The armor went dark. Mara felt herself falling, no propulsion, no stabilization. Just inertia and pain and fading awareness. She woke to silence. Not void silence. Human silence. Medlights flickered above her. Gravity pressed gently against her back. Voices murmured, distant and careful. She's alive. Armor's offline. Vitals unstable but holding. Mara opened her eyes. Her body felt heavy, wrong, like it had been rewired without asking permission. She tried to move and failed. The armor lay beside her on the deck, cracked, blackened, inert. A shell at last. She turned her head toward it. You still there? She whispered. No response. Later, hours, maybe days, she stood again. Slowly. With help. News filtered in piece by piece. The Dominion fleet had withdrawn. Not regrouped. Withdrawn. HFY was gone. Not captured. Not replaced. Gone. Human systems breathed for the first time in years. Engineers crowded the armor, desperate to revive it, to copy it, to make more. Mara stopped them. It's done, she said. And it was never the point. They didn't argue. Not with her. She returned to space weeks later, not as a symbol, not as a weapon, but as herself. Human fleets moved differently now, less rigid, less afraid of deviation. They had learned. Mara stood at the viewport of her repaired cutter, watching the stars stretch ahead. The armor never spoke again. Humanity didn't wait for it to.